All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this work session order. It's a work session on work 2025 bond and levy propositions. Today's January 10th. We're scheduled from 1 to 2 p.m. It's 1:02. We'll do introductions, starting with Mr. Martinez.
George Martinez.
Karen Bronga.
Mark Littlefield.
Zach Johnson.
Scott Meyer.
Exalta.
Christopher Constant.
Felix Rivera.
The administration, we have Ona Brous and we have Bill Falsey, who have name placards and they should put them up. Do we have anyone on the phone? Seeing no one on the phone, we also have a number of members of the administration here. So we'll have questions for them maybe, but glad to have their presence because you never want the sausage made about you if you're not in the room. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with a brief introduction by Mr. Falsey. Bill. Bill, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So welcome to Friday's work session here on bonds and levies, an exciting occasion to increase good government, think safe trails and streets, and to build our future. We're here to answer your questions today, and we were asked in advance to create a single table where we can all get into this conversation from one portal. So we have tried to place here on one page, which we've distributed in hard copy to you and which is available on the table back there, all of the bond and the two levy propositions that are going to hopefully be before voters this April. We're prepared to have any conversation you'd like, and I'll say we have in the room by request Melinda Kohlhaas, who will be able to talk about any or all the road projects. Brad Coy, you can talk about traffic calming and traffic projects, and then we even have an interactive map of all of the various parks and recreations projects. It is a choose your own adventure. So we are don't come with an affirmative presentation, but rather here to answer your questions.
So Mr. Rivera has a question about your adventure.
Thanks. So I was just looking through this list and I noticed that the Subursa levy isn't included on here, but the Girdwood road safety is included on here. I'm assuming that's because everyone has to vote on Girdwood road safety versus Subursa is just their area. But that's only that $3 million for the Girdwood road safety is only paid by the people in that service area. Okay, that was all nods for the record.
Yeah, just the record. They're all nodding over there, not shaking their heads, but nodding. So
Through the
okay,
chair to member Rivera. Yes, to your questions.
as Ms. Brous. So okay, there are a number of things. Why don't we briefly talk about the levy, Ms. Zalatel?
Whoa, what do you want me to say?
Just what we've decided.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. So we passed the ARTSA and the police levies on Tuesday night. What wasn't in those documents was the amount, excuse me, the amount per 100,000. It was the not to exceed wholesale, but it didn't break it down into the not to exceed per 100,000, depending on what they may be set by the assembly at tax time, assuming they pass. And so we talked with the clerk. We can go back and amend an item previously adopted and put in that not to exceed amount per 100,000, because I think that's the big question is how much is it going to cost a homeowner? So that's, I believe, the plan.
Right. So just to underscore that, between the finance team and the administration, Ms. Zalatel and I, the clerk, it's likely that you will see in one section of the agenda, not quite sure which, notice of a motion to amend something previously adopted, which is a very rare motion. We don't really like to use it, but since the ballot isn't set until the meeting of the 21st, we feel it's in order and we can provide a critical piece of information that was inadvertently left off. And so that will take an assertive vote of the assembly to get it back on the table, like a motion to reconsider essentially. But that is something you can anticipate coming forward, just to make sure that all the questions on the ballot relating to these financial tools are consistent and look the same. So that's that. Ona?
I was just going to say, if there is the desire, I can walk through sort of the structure of these two different worksheets that we have in front of us. The first is the single summary page, the 2025 bond and levy propositions. You'll see on the screen that it has some colors that sort of note the different kinds of mechanisms that they are. But on the copy, it's in black and white, but it's still shaded, so it's a little bit visible. The top, to the far left, we have the proposition name, the type of revenue mechanism that is being proposed, In the third column, it said whether or not the item was bonded for in the previous year in 2024, if that was either a category or what the total amount of bond in that category was. The next column is the AO documentation that you have in front of you for the various service areas and the bonds associated, the status of those documents based on current date, the total amount for each of the bonds and levies, the O&M associated with the bond propositions, and the impact per 100,000 of home valuation on the taxes levied in those service areas. So the grand total at the bottom, including the school district bond and the newly proposed and approved for the ballot fleet levies, is $133 million.
Any questions? Okay, and the second document?
The second document is the detail sheet. So there are 2 pages, and if you look at the second document, and Mr. Falsey has it up on the screen here, they are broken out by the individual projects within each of those bond categories. Across the top of the page, you'll notice that it says bond propositions and the public hearing set for 121, and then the ordinance number that corresponds to each of those detailed bond propositions that you track down the page. When you turn to page 2, the fleet levies are called out separately than the bond propositions specifically, so that it's a little more clear that they are a separate revenue mechanism.
All right, so this work session was kind of proposed by Legislative Services to make sure members had an opportunity to talk about the various projects and levy concepts. And so this is a pretty free-form conversation. It would be excellent if we could get major questions out relating to the bonds, if there are any today, because Tuesday night we have, on the 21st, we're gonna have a ton of items we have to get through to get on the bond. And of course, members are always eligible or have the right to talk about any item before us, but the idea now is if you have major concerns or considerations to bring them up. We are convened. Anything want to add, offer? Go ahead, Karen, and then Zach.
I'm just curious with the recent issues with Fish Creek Trail, and I see, it's still on here. I just wonder does that need to get worked out before we go forward with money, or we're just?
Go ahead, Ms. Salt.
Great. So we were briefed.
1 second, just note Mr. Salt is on the phone. Go ahead.
We were briefed at AMATS. It looks like that project is still on track, that the issues with Marathon Oil and the state have been negotiated. And so it's still a go. There is no pause. There's no such thing, quite frankly, as a pause. So we, as AMATS policy members, very much support that funding moves forward so that project doesn't get delayed.
Thanks.
All right, other questions? Zach.
Maybe. Okay. I was wondering if you guys, if you're able to do so, could kind of help add a little bit more context where we're looking at in the overall bond picture in terms of, how much bond debt we have outstanding, how much we're retiring, how much, if we look at like a 5 or 10 year view, with the proposals put forward, how is it going to kind of look in terms of how much we have outstanding? I mean, I'm just imagining that some voters are going to look at this, they're going to see 133 million. It's going to feel like a big number to them. There's some context we should consider there.
Through the chair to Member Johnson, for some of that detail, we'll need to get back to you as far as the historical projection, what it might look like over the next 5 to 10 years. We have looked at what the totals are for how adding this would make the tax levies change. We can get the information really quickly for some of those numbers while we're in this work session, but I think there is some additional portions of the presentation that will answer some of those questions.
Is that good for now?
Yeah, I guess it's good for now. I guess, just sort of thinking philosophically, and I guess we'll see what the voters do in April, right? But can't help but imagine that when they look at 133 million, that my confidence level that these will all pass, even if I think they all have merit, is not super high. And so I'm wondering if there's information that we should use in our conversations to sort of contextualize, what does this mean big picture for the community? Like, is this a scary number? Is it not a scary number?
And through the chair to Member Johnson, I can say from my perspective, this is not a scary number. There are some new things included, right? The fleet levies, but from a historical perspective, it's in line with what the traditional bonding amounts have been. Some of the individual bond categories are higher than they have been in the past. And part of that is to bring the parity back around for sort of equaling out the fact that the Parks and Rec bonds have not been as large as the road bonds traditionally are. Also, to sort of correct some of the supply chain and workload challenges that we have had on the construction projects. I think that making sure that we are bonding for the right amount, the right dollar, the right construction sort of workload was part of our look in the first few months of being in the municipality to say, where are we with all of these different things that the municipality is in charge of building? And should we slow down on some of them because we have money piling up behind us and we aren't getting the projects out the door? And so the road bond in particular is slightly smaller than it has been in the past. And the area-wide, I think it's in the area-wide, bonding amounts are larger for some of the pedestrian improvements and traffic safety. We have Brad Coy here if there are any questions around those. But it's generally in line with what we have seen in the past outside of the fleet levies, and probably about $10 to $15 million.
And I'll add through the chair to Member Johnson. I'm a little hobbled not being able to manipulate my computer now that it's up on the screen. But if you were to total all of the totals in the 2024 question mark column, it looks like 123 to me. The difference is a little bit of truing up, as Director Browse said, and also that we have this additional levy beast here that is a new flavor of things. We can talk about that further if you'd like.
And I would add, and I have myself in the queue for next opportunity to speak, but I would add that the 1 year where there was a real outlier was the school district's very, very, very big bond where they intended to go for 2 years. And I think the voters, what did the voters do with that? Do you remember? I don't remember.
I think that failed.
Yeah, I think it failed. And that
it
was like the
failed.
1 year where the total amount was like $170 million. It was
Yeah.
a huge sum because their bond was over $100 million. And so it is a fair concern. I think this year it's fairly status quo.
And through the chair to Member Johnson, we contemplated the idea of bond holidays for some of these categories of bonds to say, do we need to bond for that style of item this year, or can we slow it down? But it's really challenging, particularly with the road infrastructure, because we have to keep projects in the queue. So if we're in design, we need to have things move into construction, et cetera, et cetera. And so making sure that we aren't stalling on any of the projects that we're working on is important. And that was part of our sort of conversation around what was
That's
gonna
actually a
be on the
perfect
list.
segue to my question. Melinda, why don't you come on up? So I'm not going to pick on any individual projects. And my question really is there kind of an overarching philosophy of the approach to which projects were selected? What was that approach, if there was one? And what should our takeaway be in the conversation about kind of what Mona just hinted at, keeping things in the queue, long-term strategies, et cetera? So was there kind of an approach?
Melinda Colhaas, PM&E Director. Thank you for the question, Chair Constant. I have just took a look at the difference between 2024 CIB and then compared it to the 2025. And if I may, kind of just give you kind of an overview, highlight, and then a little bit of a comparison. And that may answer your question because I think these are questions that I anticipated. In past years, the 2024 was a bit higher, but it was higher than past years before that. Last year, it was 47.1 million and 33.7 for 2025 as proposed on the CIB. A high priority for PM&E and MOA on our road projects is to meet our match obligations for the projects through AMATs. We have projects such as Spinard Road that is advancing Another particular project is the 4th Avenue Signal and Lighting Downtown Infrastructure Project. That one's advancing and the other ones are coming along. So it is our first priority to meet all of those match obligations. Secondly, our annual programs, those are fairly consistent through from year to year. I kind of just did a comparison and noted if there was anything different. Just a couple things that were slightly different is, we're being very responsible with money that we have in hand. Ms. Browse indicated, where we found that the street light annual program has money still in place. We were able to reduce the bond amount asked for 2025. In the ADA program, we didn't ask for money for 2025 because we have money on hand, where we did split out some funding that was allocated for ADA ramp improvements that was carried into our 36th Avenue resurfacing project. And so we still have remaining funds allocated towards a 2025 bond project that we will be bidding in 2025. So reasons like that, that one is not individually named and listed in this program. Something else just to note, let's see, we added a new category called, in addition to the pedestrian safety and rehabilitation, we added a sidewalk rehab. And they're kind of different intents. One is fixing cracks and broken segments, whereas the other one can be looked at as providing connectivity and fixing some of the pedestrian safety, and that can be used quite flexibly. As far as overall on the individual projects, one thing that we are being a bit cautious about with our administration is, instead of starting a bunch of new projects with new project starts that we've had in past years, we're kind of putting a little bit of a downshift and saying, hey, we need to get some of our other projects developed and out the door and delivered before we start another 5 new projects. So in that case, the only real new projects that we added are things like drainage-related projects on 15th Avenue, where we had winter glaciation happening. So that's in response to some deficiencies that were noted. Burgaw Street pipe collapse that prompted some money to be allocated toward storm drain infrastructure on Burgaw. And that project will also dovetail with the SS4A Safe Streets and Roads for All grant, the FHWA grant that was received, where that particular grant cannot accommodate storm drain maintenance infrastructure. So it's focused primarily on improvements and deficiencies and safety issues. So that is money that was added. But other than that, that kind of lays out some of, what was selected. I could go on a little bit more if you'd like, but.
I think that's sufficient. Karen?
I just was curious about your ADA compliant, I'm not sure if that's the term you use, but there's the gate into Regal Mountain that hasn't got fixed yet. And so I'm hoping that I thought that was moving forward, and if there's no money being asked for that, maybe it's not. The other is the overpass over Muldoon Road at 36th, which is not ADA compliant in any way. So just curious about those two. I can also ask you offline too.
Okay. Member Bronga, through the chair, the Regal Mountain project that's already has funding allocated, and we drew that money from the pedestrian safety project as it fit that intent and goal. So that one we're using money from that we already had in hand. The other project, I believe, because we're still sorting out ability to use bond funds on a state right away, that one may have to look towards future state grant funding, but that hasn't been fully fleshed out.
They say Muldoon is ours?
They say the overpass is yours.
Okay, others? Mr. Littlefield, I'm sorry. I cut you
That's
off,
right.
yeah.
Thank you. on this page here, I understand the area-wide facilities and the area-wide public safety. However, I'm a little concerned about the AMATS Mountain Air Drive. Is that in the right place or should it be over there under Anchorage Road and Drainage? So I'm just wondering there, and then on the back thing, I understand the service area, the engine replacement, the tender, water tender, the headquarters upgrade, that's all area-wide because we all get the support of that. But I don't know about that one. Is that in the right place?
Through the chair to Member Littlefield, that is a great catch. It is in the right place and it has a story. Mountain Air is outside of ARDSA. And so for many years, it was in the AMATS process as something that would need a local match, and there was no way to make that local match. In something around 2018-19, the municipality said that it wanted to get into the business of creating a new area-wide power of life safety access roads. We asked the voters for approval to design and construct 3 life safety access roads. Mountain Air was one. And so it is an area-wide road, unlike all the others in ARDSA.
So quick question on that specific item. There was one that was selected in Eagle River, and we got to come back for the bond money for this because that was part of that whole scenario. And I remember because I was a part of that. So we got to come back for that. And I forget what the name of the road is, but I know Mountain Air was a part of that situation.
Yeah, and I will say this is one of those threads that I have not completely fully picked up again. We've had one internal meeting where Kent Colhase is now, much like CASA, going to be assigned to breathe that program new life as well. My recollection is that it was Boundary, Mountain Air, and Kohlberg, and at least the legend I was told was that something happened with the Eagle River one after I left, and it became less palatable or not palatable at all.
There's no way.
Okay.
Mountain Air is the Anchorage one, and the one in Eagle River, we've actually spent money through that previous bond to get it surveyed, get it ready to go. And now we're looking to where we go from here. And if we pass Mountain Air, we're going to be out there left alone when this was all a big family, the 3 roads together. So I'm concerned about passing that one. And then we come back for the one that's in Eagle River that was a part of the original bond.
All right, well, we'd be happy to take that conversation up with you after this meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some consideration that there was a community objection to that at some point. So I think we should wrap them together. So I have Mark and then Meg and then Daniel.
Yeah, I would verify that the other road, Mark, is in the AMATS boundary too, to see if it could be nominated for the tip. I think that might be part of the trickiness. So I had the same question as Mark on that road, but I do see under the facilities bond, the fire panel replacement. Why is it there versus the public safety bond? And my concern is the history of facilities bonds and their likelihood of passage. And it is a public safety issue to have fire suppression.
Through the chair to Member Zalatel, service areas.
So the public safety bond is a full no service area one, whereas the facilities bond has service areas.
No. I'm sorry. I was looking at the other. Okay. So you're asking why it's in facilities as opposed to an area wide?
In public safety,
safety.
because we have other fire related items in public safety. It seems like it's a public safety thing.
The answer is because we were thinking of public safety departments. Right. So it's police and fire, right? So it's
But that can't be
deliberative.
true because public safety also has traffic calming and other things in it as well. And so ambulance replacement, I get, the signal light, the signalization is also in that public safety bond. I don't know if it's too late because if we were to move it, it would increase the bond amount
I think
or what's noticed.
I don't know about the specific changes that you want to make and whether or not we can make them or can't make them. But what I will say is that the reason that I am under the impression that it is in the column that it's in is because that's where it has traditionally been. Right. M&O is in area-wide facilities.
I'm kind of confused. I mean, I guess if it can be moved, I think I would like it to be moved. I'm hearing it is an acute need. And I have some worry about the history of facilities bonds passing.
And can I jump in here through the chair to Member Zalta, just to make sure we're on the same page. So we're looking at the 16th row here, the $2 million that I put a box around on the board, the major fire alarm system panel replacement.
I'm looking at the item that was introduced as the $6.8 million general obligation bond for community facilities. And it says major municipal facility fire alarm system panel replacement, $2 million.
And the question was, why is it in area-wide facilities as opposed to area-wide public safety?
Why isn't it just, in the area-wide public safety? Yeah.
And to answer your question, I think that it can be moved. It was just a consideration. So I think that will be a question for bond council in terms of changing titles, et cetera.
Daniel, and then myself, and then Zach.
The I Street stairs are still generating a lot of interest from my constituents. So is it still, is the fact finding that we've done still that it's on a DOT owned land, or who we can't bond for it? Can you just walk me through that a little bit? I've just received tons of emails. The community council has had multiple meetings where it's been an item on the agenda, et cetera.
Member Bolin, through the chair. I just completed some research based on an inquiry from Chair Constant about what funded the original I Street stairs. And so Chelsea Wardwaller, CIP coordinator, we went back and looked through 1983, 1981 CIB or capital programs. And in the Parks and Recreation program, we found the 1981 state grant funded that project. So what our understanding is, because it is not MOA controlled land, that, you know, the best source of funding would be something other than bond funding. That's my current impression, unless there was some easement identified. But the hardship is, according to DOT, is they don't provide easements within their right of way. That's what I've been informed. So I believe, you know, if there's interest in advocating for state grant for that project for a repair or replacement.
We included it as a priority for district in our legislative packet that went to Juneau. Many different priorities in that packet as well. But I'm wondering if maybe that's something we can get programmed through AMAP. I would be interested to talk with you further offline about how we can actually make that go, because it looks really bad right now. Frankly, it's falling apart. There's signage. At the request of the community council, put up a detour signage that's already been graffitied over. And so, I don't know, I think it's, you know, a sign of deterioration right now. It's even, you know, there's the functional aspect, but then the symbolic aspect too. So thanks.
All right, so I just wanted to jump onto what Meg said about the life safety aspect of, or the public safety aspect of the fire panel. Manager in the old days used to drive around with a police car, cruiser style vehicle that had all the radios in it. In fact, emergency coordination at the highest level happens on the 8th floor, and the legislative body for this municipality is in this building. So if there's an argument about public safety, the argument can be made. I think, of course, Cynthia Weed is the final barrier or not, but I think it's wise. Zach.
Yeah, just with that, I just wanted to make sure my assumption's correct. The firearm system, we're talking about the one for this building, yeah?
Through the chair to Member Johnson, I don't know if it's for this building in particular. We can get a list of the specific facilities that M&O has at the top.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'd just be curious, because obviously I think Council was just talking about
But I would,
the deficiencies in our system here, and I guess it'd be good to know what it costs, because this building feels like a bit of a money pit sometimes.
and through the chair to Member Johnson, we don't own this building, so bonding for it is not possible, as far as I know. We would have to actually have other revenue mechanisms in order to fix something in this building that we lease.
Oh, okay, so the 2 million then is not for the fire system in City Hall, it's for other places.
Infrastructure we own.
Okay, that's.
Mm-mm. Fire system panel replacement, it's a category of things. It's for more than one. I don't know exactly how much the $2 million bucket gets you, but it is in the programmatic lane of the traffic safety improvements where you fund $2 million and then determine which is the worst and move forward on that as fast as you possibly can. So we can get M&O to provide a list. They certainly have a list of all of these improvements that need to be made. And when we were in our budget work sessions with them, many months ago, this was the major item that was emphasized from M&O's perspective as the, frankly, I think the number one priority for them.
Okay, that's already helpful right there. It's just, it's really we need to fix the fire system here, right? But it's nice to know we're not throwing $2 million at it from bonding. Thank you.
Okay, other questions from folks? So yesterday we had a conversation about the CASA program and a potential CIP document that's been drafted by members who are interested. You've probably seen it. And there's some discussion about hopefully adding a little bit of preamble and definitions to the CIP, what those categories are and why it's important to identify them. But at the same time, to take this process that we're going through by the 21st and import that into the budget process going forward. So just kind of projecting out past this deadline and into the future, the conversations are happening now internally to effectuate that. So you have that information. Other than that, is there any other matters people want to talk about? Okay, so, Dean.
Oh, thank you. I was just curious about a levy that we approved a few years ago for the police department technology. And I know that's not something that's up for us to approve right now. Is that something that we're levying annually, and that's going to be a levy when we do that in spring?
Yes, that's right. So we have done 2 annual levies previously. One was for fire department medical equipment. The other was for the police technology, which was both CAD RMS and body cams. And the plan is to annually levy that levy. It's a little redundant because it was to carry the annual operating costs of those systems. And I believe we have trued it up every year. I don't know what the amount is this year, but that will be part of the levying process.
So that actually
Thanks. I know that
raises,
was sort of a digression.
let's use this last time before we break for the next work session to just have a discussion about the difference between bonds and levies, since we've been kind of having that conversation on the back end, so everybody can benefit from that. I think it's probably a really valuable exercise. So why don't you take us down the road of bonds and levies?
All right, well, I can hazard a little bit on that. So as we talked when we introduced these levies last go around, which I pause for a comment first or question first?
Go first or after?
Just a
George?
point of information, but
Yep.
like informally, I guess.
Yep.
This work session ends at
I think about 2.
the hour.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to at least raise a question, maybe Member Bronga as well, around park stuff. But so
Yeah, no,
before going to like a conclusory discussion.
yeah,
is that
this
still-
is the time.
Right
So
on,
this
cool.
was just
We
philosophical.
just saw a slide that had like park stuff on there,
Yeah,
but
so this is the
Right
time.
on.
Like, get it now.
right
Yes,
on.
you missed
That was
the
a placeholder
opportunity.
for us time.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's my question, Karen. I'm gonna steal it.
Yeah, go
Right
ahead.
on. And then we'll see how it goes from there. Can you identify what is the Parks and Rec Town Square Park Development Bond for 2.9? What is that?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Member Martinez. I think we're going to have a whole additional work session. We're going to request a whole additional work session on the Town Square project. Right now, I don't have the final answer for you, and so I'm a little hesitant to give you one, but we are actively working to shape that, and we'll have a good answer for you before you take action on this. Unless there's more that I want to say, I think that's what I want to offer you today and say that we'll come back for the action on this item.
All right. Well, just to flag, aside from being an interesting place of development, numerically, that represents more than half of the total, almost, of what's on this particular document, right? So it's a pretty substantial number that's being requested. Interesting work session, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Right.
So there won't be time for another work session before we take a vote on these matters. And so,
Before approving it for the ballot.
yeah, it's way too late for that. So if we want to invite parks up to do the same thing we had Artsa do, or Ms. Colhis do, was kind of discuss the approach and the theory of the parks bonds, this is the time to do it. So
Yeah, right on.
welcome.
Gotta let some of the cat out the bag, guys.
Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Taylor Keegan. I'm the superintendent, and I also have here with me Shanna Gamble, who is our budget expert. So we are here to help educate everyone here on the 2025 ballot proposition items. We have made a story map, and I think you guys have seen these in the past. This is currently in draft form. We will be finalizing it as we move forward towards the April bond. We have, as we're going down, you can see that there's a nice spread of projects. It includes an array of facilities, parks, starting with master planning efforts, as well as implementing community priorities from planning efforts that are nearing completion now, such as Eastchester Park. I will also offer up that we have been working closely with PM&E and trying to align our CIP and CIB process to form a matrix so we can be more transparent with everyone about how we go about prioritizing the many, many needs of our public lands and facilities across Anchorage. So we appreciate them working with us as we continue to develop that. A lot of the categories are similar, such as Melinda said earlier, like what do we have match for? And what can we leverage match funds for with bonds, as well as things like, is it feasible to construct? Is it on MOA property? Are there existing partnerships? Does it serve not only underserved communities, but underserved users? And this is where I will give a small shout out to We See You Pickleball community. Is the asset needing repairs relating to the health, safety, and welfare of Anchorage residents? So is this a crumbling resource? I know we talked about the H&I Street stairs, things like that. We have a lot of bridges that we have on our list of needs. So that being said, at Centennial, we are looking for some bathroom and electrical upgrades. At Chester Creek Sports Complex, there is a long laundry list of needs there, but we're also looking to kick off a master planning effort to try to gain consensus on the many users and also provide a vision moving forward into the next 20 years. East Delaney Park and facility improvements. This really focuses on the area with the old train, Pete's Gym, and the multiple user courts that are there. Eastchester Park, we're wrapping up the master plan, so we'll be realizing the community members' priorities, which include a playground, parking lots, and a parking lot. Long-term there, it's pretty cool, guys. The community suggested rerouting the creek or restoring the natural flow of the creek. So that'll be at planning zoning in the upcoming months. Fairview Recreation Center, we have ongoing improvements there. It's actively under construction right now. There's a fresh coat of paint. We're gonna have new bleachers and sound panels in the gym, as well as exterior signage. Fish Creek Trail to the Ocean, that one came up and was discussed already. Happy to answer any questions if folks have them. Goose Lake Park, there's a lot of interest from the community and UAA to kick off a master plan here. This is such a lovely park used by so many people. And yeah, excited to provide that with some love. Kincaid Park, same idea, master planning. The master plan was originally, I think, from 1983 and had an update in 2006, which was like a 5-pager. It did not include this level of single track use there. And NSAA has, as well as STA and other users, have some big ideas. So we want to make sure we're going through that in an equitable way that includes a master plan. Midtown Park Chalet. This is an item that is not the first time it's been on the bond and includes an indoor facility, likely at Cuddy Family Midtown Park, Nunaka Valley Park improvements, some pretty old playground facilities there that need some love. Peratrovich, this is to make an existing project there whole. We have some money in hand, but we need additional money to make sure we can install lighting and other things. Pool filtration system, I am less familiar with this, but I understand it just got bounced out over from the facility side. Read the conversation we were just having about bond success. And we want to make sure that we're keeping those pools up and running. We have a lot of users that rely on them. Kids don't float, right? Okay. Sand Lake Dock, our rowing club operates out of Sand Lake, which is actually Chitose Park, recently renamed. And we want to make sure those docks can accommodate a more diverse range of users. Also, they're crumbling. So we want to improve that. Sitka Street Park Trail Rehabilitation. This is a match to leverage rehabilitation funds, pathway repair funds from AMATs. We're excited about this because the trail's in pretty rough shape, and as the bridge exists now, we can't take our trackless equipment over it. So there's a winter maintenance correction that can happen with improving this resource. And finally, Town Square Park development. I know we touched on this, or there were questions about it. So we are excited to realize as much of the master plan as we can. The master plan highlighted safety as a big aspect of what needs to be focused on here. So we're currently looking at interim solutions with the funding that we have now that will include lighting and sightline improvements. That'll be in 2025. And we are working with a range of stakeholders and folks to figure out different pathways forward that would look like, okay, if we just have this bond, that's approximately $3 million to spend. What does that look like? What can we essentially flatten in the park to improve sightlines? How can we incorporate the exterior neighbors or interior, if you call Kobuck interior, and the pack? But also, what does another bond of the same size look like? What does an $8 million or $7 million or $6 million solution look like? So yeah, it's an amazing facility, and we're really excited to be diving into it. Happy to answer specific questions if you have them.
I have in the queue Meg and then Daniel, others. Okay, go ahead, Meg.
All right, this is an open can of worms. Sorry. I hope you're ready. So $2.9 million is wildly out of line of proportionment with any other project on this bond, other than the Fish Creek Trail. And I understand that's a match and a leverage to some other funding. So you said you have some money now. How much money do you have now for Town Square Park for 2025 already?
We are looking to invest about $400,000 in 2025. That's what we've loosely allocated toward the improvements that include lighting, sightlines, and some minor grading of the site.
Okay. And when was the master plan last done for Town Square Park?
2019.
Great. When was the master plan last done for Cuddy Park?
The master plan, I believe in Cuddy. Do you know this, Meg? Is it 2006?
I do not. I'm not. It's not a gotcha. I can't find it online.
Okay, I think it's so interesting you ask. I think it was 2006, and we've been digging through a lot of the planning and zoning and things because what we have on file is a picture.
Okay, great. So this brings me to a concern I have about this project, which really highlights my concern overall around equity in projects and equity around town. In order to get a master plan, a neighborhood plan, or a district plan, there has to be funding, and we don't have an equitable way in which we are doing this. And so it is truly someone pushing something through that gets it to the top of the list. If we are looking at making public safety improvements to Town Square Park, which I believe we are doing, that's what I'm hearing this $400,000 is being used for. What I'm not hearing is a really clear vision for $3 million past that point. And I have some concerns about investing $3 million without a plan or without a full plan when if we want an $8.25 million parks fund, I love it. It's great. And I get why, but we could add 5 to 6 more projects in the proportional nature, or we can go all in on this. And I just am not feeling like we have enough information. Doesn't mean that we can't send this to the voters, but I think between now and the 21st, a lot more information needs to come forward and a lot of justification, because we thought we were being aggressive in Midtown when we were adding $400,000 for the Midtown Chalet. I feel like we undersold ourselves, quite frankly. And, I get it. But looking at what's been a long, hard fought process for us to revitalize an area, what we think is a seminal municipal area in Midtown, we are nickel and diming it versus a $3 million investment. And I think other parts of town are probably also feeling that way right now as well. So this is a request for more information.
And I think some care and attention is in order that this is, at least for the staff at the table, parks, the conversation about neighborhood specific plans and others are at a different place in our mix. And so it's fair to say these are equity issues because it's fairly and reasonably true, but it's not Taylor who has to defend that. And so that's an
That wasn't
administration. Yeah, I'm just making sure it's really clear that Taylor's only role is on the parks and Valley's there, not all that other stuff. That's FYI. Okay. Yeah, okay.
And through the chair to member Salatel, there will be more information forthcoming. I think we can get you very quickly by next week some additional information towards Town Square Park. And then as we move forward, before you actually have to vote on it, we'll get you anything that we have about what's coming for 25 and what would be planned for the 2.9 proposal. I think that the equity piece of the conversation is very challenging. And part of that has to do with the fact that Town Square Park, when it is live and active and fun to be in, is used by the entire community. And so part of the consideration there is making sure that the whole picture is being told as you are taking those considerations as you vote. I did have an idea while we were sitting here talking about this that I'd like to run by you when we're done with this, Member Zalatel.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, maybe no surprise, but I disagree with Meg on this item. We have supported the Midtown Park Chalet multiple times via Assembly Amendment. And there's a funding stack there, and there's something I've strongly supported in the past. And I think if we look at past bonds, East Anchorage did very well last year with a number of projects getting on that bond. I think it is the prerogative of an administration to bring forward a larger project and say, hey, this is going to be transformative for the area. It has high usage. It has high public safety needs. If you ask any of the people who work at the PAC or the surrounding businesses, they will tell you that. There's been extensive mitigation that has had to be done in the past. Things like removing the lower branches of trees in Town Square Park, so there's not unsavory activities of all kinds happening underneath them. I also feel like it stacks very well with the other projects that are slated in that area. As folks will remember from our last meeting, we approved the downtown library concept being able to move forward. There's improvements for Paratrovich Park. So I think it's, there's an opportunity here to really think holistically about downtown and how our public spaces are used and how that can be to the benefit of downtown. And I hear constantly from downtown business owners about the lack of repair and maintenance downtown to our infrastructure, to our public spaces, and the impact that has on wanting to do business downtown. And so anyway, I can appreciate that it's a big ticket item, but I think it has the opportunity to be transformative. And I'll say the Fish Creek Trail to the ocean, that's not an insignificant project that multiple times as well has received funding. So some of these things get bigger allocations of funding all at once, some stack in multiple years over time. Thanks.
All right, and I just have myself in the queue and then I see Karen. My only notion on that is when you talk to my friends at the Fairview Community Council, they get really mad when people suggest that an investment at Sullivan Arena, which is housed in the community council, is an investment in Fairview, because Fairview doesn't use that any more than anyone else in this town does. They don't love that. It's not a thing that makes them happy. They Marie Kondo their life. They put housing there. And so I think some care and attention is important to understand that certain regional facilities, and this gets back to the CASA conversation, have a broader usage than the folks who live there. And so it's important for us to consider that in the context of when we assign value to an area, that value isn't to the neighbors. It's to the broader city need. And so I just think that's an important conversation element. I don't disagree with both Meg and with Daniel here, so it puts me in a funny spot. But I just want to make sure we all understand that there are regional facilities, there are local facilities, and when we're putting in investments, if we're making them for the regional facilities, please don't assume that's to the benefit of the people who are there. It just functions differently. Karen?
Thank you. You know, I'm always 100% parks, and I love the idea of brightening town square, but I feel like the bigger issue is enforcement of what's going on in the square. I went to the Christmas celebration there, the tree lighting, and it was lovely. I've been to skating events and Keegan's gold medal. I mean, the town square to me is just lovely as it is, but it needs enforcement. So my 2 cents worth.
George?
Just to continue on that thread of engagement and activation, there's certainly a nexus between capital investments, design, development, and the quality of life experience for a facility that is a city gem, essentially. To Karen's point, if the facility changed not at all for a decade, but the grass was maintained, the lights were changed, and you let Ziggy have better paint, and even work with work with the school district and kind of get more creative with engagement, and you clean it up, you'd have the same amount of traffic in my mind as that we hope for. And so it really raises the question around these projects at a capital level live in an ecosystem that we fund other organizations to do the life work as well. Now, this is a little beyond, some of that life work is past the security questions that have been growing, but I just wanted to put it out there that part of the challenge is, from my vantage point, is that I don't see how the other stakeholders who are even at a table this week championing a sales tax for projects that were not here. In fact, I don't see how those things square at the back end. And so, because I think we can ignite engagement in a way that is transformative. And then you can bring alongside some of these long-term capital things that enhance that experience. But it's an interesting dynamic when the engagement folks are essentially not doing the level of opportunity that I think we can have. So I'll just throw that out there. Thank you, Chair.
All right, and I have myself again in the queue just to note that the proposal, as I have heard for Town Square, is not, it isn't something that simply enforcement could manage. It's like we don't set up police forces. What they're talking about is completely transforming the sightlines so that people can actually see across the park in a way that provides so that public safety can occur when the police are policing somewhere else. And so, because we don't want to set up a police stand at Town Square Park to make sure it's safe and unabused. And so the theory there is to, at least as I understand it, to transform the park so you can see from corner to corner, which is totally different than what exists there today. But again, I'll let the administration argue why they want 2.9 million, because I haven't been inside of that conversation. I have heard from the community. George? No? Okay. Yeah, so it's the long-term future of that park is it will transform. It's just a matter of when. It's not structured anymore. It's the same as the removal of the fountain. It's just a continuation of that process. Anyone else? Mark? Okay, Beck, go ahead. New topic.
Okay, thank you, sir. Back here on the levy for the special levy 2024 132, just to save everybody some conversation, $600,000 for a dump truck. It's not actually for a dump truck. If you went to M&O, they're probably going to say it's a multifaceted vehicle that has a sander that slides onto it, has a dump bed, and quite possibly a boiler. If I was John and Jane Q Public reading this, I'm going to go out and start buying some chassis and making dump trucks. So maybe a little more clarity before we send this out.
So Mark, I think I'm gonna riff. Meg and I have been kind of having conversations on the side about that very topic. And so if the question is moved to amend something previously adopted, there is some more effective language we might add relating to the kind of ARTSA equipment fleet, because it's not just the little white vehicles. It's a substantial set of vehicles that do huge things. And so to your point, we agree and think that that may be a slight additional alternative you see than just the amount per 100,000. So we agree. Yeah. It's, it's easy to make assumptions. We need to be just a little clear. Okay, other members? Well, we are somehow now out of time when I thought we'd be done 20 minutes ago. So welcome to the municipal process. Brad, you're off the hook. You skated this time. I think before I adjourn, I'll just say the thing I keep hearing about relating to Mr. Coy's work is traffic calming devices. And so, but you have a broad package. And we did appreciate the presentation at the council in this room the other night. And I don't know if Daniel let you know, we're inviting you back to his transportation committee to make the presentation there on the 15th. So with Anna, hopefully. Okay, thanks. That will be adjourned and we'll convene back at 10 after.